Oh, this is so awesome. Who's the guy with the blue hair? Can you even have that? It begins. Yeah, I'm so excited.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Kaz Haraj.
Oh, there he is.
Ladies and gentlemen, black is beautiful.
Whoops.
Whose hand is touching my parts?
Could we please get the lights back
So
on?
let me just hook up the audio first.
And let me jump in here and kindly explain what's happening. There's quite a few games left from the 8 and 16-bit days that I love and haven't even touched on yet. But even so, I feel like I want to jump a few years and one console generation ahead this time and talk about this one first.
Alright, so let me go right ahead.
Surprise, surprise. Well, their fuse protection is working.
It won't let him do his thing.
Which might seem a bit weird, cause until now, out of all the, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, something games that I've mentioned here and there, at least the ones I focused on all came in the order I got to play them. And playing them even happened around the same time, but all that is pretty much a coincidence, and I don't want to force staying on this track. Cause if I just decided that I'm gonna be talking about, say, what do we have? Mario Kart this time? Yeah, that would probably go like...
Oh, that, yeah, really great game. Yeah, I love this game. No, really, we played that so much. In fact, we played it a lot. It's always so much fun.
Well, I could come up with something slightly more engaging, but the point is, it's all just bits and pieces until some ideas come along to arrange it into something someone else might actually enjoy watching. And sometimes this whole idea-having thing turns out to be hard to steer.
Whoa!
So, what does all this mean?
Alright, I just want you to know that if from now on the order in which I'm going through stuff seems weird and confusing and random like crazy to you, be assured that it's not. At least not random. But I suppose it's only in everyone's favor if I'm telling a story, not because it just has to be the next one, but rather one that has been coming along well and that I'm happy with and think is gonna be fun and exciting and all the good stuff. And that's why I'm gonna do a little jump here to 1996, which in video game terms isn't little at all. So let me give you some context how it came to this.
And let's see if you can guess what the title is going to be.
Yeah, naturally. Well, late in the glorious Game Boy and NES days, the Super Nintendo popped up. And for me it really did pop up out of nowhere. One day we just got our Club Nintendo issue 392 with the thing on the cover, and I remember thinking,
Don't know, too many colors, too many buttons, don't have my own TV anyway. Don't care, don't like, don't want.
But of course, the Super Nintendo would become a platform to hold a lot of very dear gaming memories. It was actually a revelation, obviously a leap in graphics, but the gamepad would turn out amazing too, and the console would also have a killer sound chip. And most importantly, the system would see dozens of unique and brilliant games. I still only had a Game Boy and wouldn't get a Super Nintendo until the summer of 1995. In the meantime, I would even be unfaithful and have an affair with the Amiga 500 home computer.
Oh.
And our relationship certainly had its high points and even wonderful moments, but it was after all kind of a second choice I had to go with. You may remember what I've said in the first episode about why we've had another home computer in the house before.
Gaming devices evil, real computers good.
But I still managed to get my fair share of Super Nintendo playtime elsewhere. And it must have dawned on me that my current relationship just wouldn't work out in the long run. So after 2 years we went our separate ways and I got me my first own non-handheld console. At this point I must have thought, if a game isn't on Super Nintendo, it can't possibly be worth your time. And for a while I even assumed the pretty high retail prices of Super Nintendo games would reflect just that and nothing else. Not say the high manufacturing cost of Nintendo's proprietary ROM cartridges. No, but just because Super Nintendo games were usually that good. But then, most of the ones we played during that time just were. And it felt like this was the way video games were meant to be. Of course, development on a new Nintendo console was already well underway even before I got my Super Nintendo. It was then codenamed Project Reality. What a mouthful. And I knew about this. The thing had come to my attention through a 2-page coverage in Club Nintendo issue 294. But I wasn't freaking out. In fact, my reaction was pretty similar to when I first read about Super Nintendo. And it surely wasn't the time to get excited yet. Even more than a year after the announcement, all you ever got to see from Nintendo's Project Reality, or the Ultra 64 as it became known around 1995, was either plain technical spec sheets or screenshots of what games on the machine might one day look like. And those screenshots were either from the Killer Instinct and Cruisin' USA arcade machines or the unrelated Performer Town demo from Silicon Graphics, the company that Nintendo then partnered with to develop the Ultra 64 hardware. The demo just had some Nintendo character billboards worked into it to even make a connection. And this all looked alienating and generic. It was the exact opposite of what I had come to love about Nintendo. But in the November of 1995, Nintendo's 7th annual Shoshinkai software exhibition happened, where for the first time an early version of Mario 64 could be played. And that's when everyone and their dog snapped and went from to... Yeah, and of course the console was finally renamed. And I did what everyone else did. I started waiting for a long time. Cause the console wouldn't see the light of day over here until the 1st of March 1997. But in the meantime, the video game landscape was beginning to change. Only with my Nintendo tunnel vision I hadn't noticed. So when one day a friend said pretty casually that he kinda liked the idea of having a Sony PlayStation, I only thought,
You what do you like? What?
Well, naturally I just dismissed it as some sort of crazy talk. But I started getting glimpses of game reviews in magazines that didn't just talk about Nintendo, the sort of publications I usually didn't even bother to look at. And there certainly were a lot of mediocre games for this PlayStation, but once in a while there would be something that seemed to be exciting.
You don't even think that, thought crime! You have just been charged with high treason by the Nintendo Fanboy Society.
But eventually this friend, another friend and I hatched a plan that we would just check out this thing by renting one for a weekend from our local video store. And so we did.
As a matter of fact, this screen also brings back memories for me as well. I'm sure it does for some of you.
With it, we borrowed 3 games. The first one was Wipeout, which only I insisted on, probably because I loved F-Zero so much. And I was told beforehand,
No, don't fall for this, it's boring. They just want to fool you with all these lines. They're just painted onto the track so that it seems fast on screen.
Yeah, whatever. I kept insisting, so we grabbed it, popped it in once, and no one of us really got the game. We just bounced around the track, and after a few minutes I was like,
You're right, this is retarded.
And I can't even begin to describe just how wrong I was back then. But that's probably worth another episode someday. Then we had
Street Fighter Alpha,
which was a pretty safe bet. We all liked the Street Fighter 2 games on Super Nintendo, and this one turned out to be fun too. It was a little painful to play with the PlayStation controller's D-pad. But it worked. And then we got one more game, which would kind of become my downfall from Nintendo grace.
It's Ridge Racer.
I think this one was our main reason for checking out the console anyway.
It's Ridge.
Oh, interesting story. In late 1995, I had read an interview with Nintendo of Germany's public relation manager, during which even he wasn't denying that this was a good racing game. You know, this game.
Ridge.
I'm trying to be subtle here.
Game is powered by Namco. It's Ridge Racer. Ridge Racer. Remember that one? All right. So let me go right ahead.
No, actually, I haven't been honest with you. It wasn't Ridge Racer, but Ridge Racer Revolution. Yeah, I know. Apparently not too many people care for this game anymore. For it just looks like, well, Ridge Racer. Only with a rearview mirror and a set of different courses and music and stuff. And yeah, that's basically it. It is a glorified update for the original Ridge Racer. Just one that makes for a polished and excellent game. Though if at the time you were among those who had already played the first Ridge Racer excessively, then yes, this game probably looked like anything but a revolution to you. But I had not, and in my case the title would perfectly capture the experience I was about to have. And part of my initial amazement certainly had to do with the sheer leap in technology. What I was used to were games like F-Zero or maybe Starwing, aka Star Fox, that even had its own coprocessor in the cartridge to help the console with the graphics. And I love those two games, I really do. In fact, they were the first ones I got me for my own Super Nintendo. But I had just never played anything that had so much awesome looking 3D stuff moving so fast and smoothly on the screen. Though as amazing as this PlayStation was on the screen, it surely didn't appear too impressive in front of it. Those earlier PlayStation models were well known for their hardware flaws. If I remember this right, ours came with a note that said something like,
"Put console on its back to make it read CDs and prevent overheating."
It was kinda messed up. And on top of that, we hadn't really been too smart about our setup. This whole PlayStation venture was combined with a sleepover. And we had all our stuff spread in the one corner of the room that had the TV in it. Which didn't even leave enough space to have a dedicated spot for the console. So it ended up being bounced around between mattresses and rolled out sleeping bags. And we learned that the already messed up PlayStation also didn't like to be moved around while loading. Which was especially problematic because we also didn't have a memory card to save our progress.
Not again.
But that did little to my impression of the game itself.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah, we all know how new and awesome technology usually makes a big first impression, right? But it's also amazing how incredibly fast you can get used to something. And after the few minutes of blissful novelty, there'd better be something else to grab you. And there was. This game was fun. So much fun. And in a way it had to be, cause you better make sure that the racing in your racing game is fun if it only has 3 courses. That's right, the game did essentially have 3 courses, which weren't even 3 separate ones, but one base track with different sections opened up. What we were used to were 15 courses in F-Zero or 20 in Mario Kart. And yet, this seductive game kept us taking turns for hours. And in the process, it gently penetrated my Nintendo-shaped mind. So much that it even made me question my everyday principles, like
Braking is so stupid you don't break, you power slide. In Mario Kart you always power slide. Winners power slide.
Sadly, we knew little about the crazy Ridge Racer handling model, which would have enabled us to do just that, and more. But to our eyes, the car would just start spinning out randomly sometimes when we let go of the gas. So we just held down the accelerate button all the time while braking and got around our corners like that. Which is certainly not the Ridge Racer way, as I would learn later on. But the game even managed to make well-timed braking feel great, somehow.
Winners power slide.
And it also managed to make me fall in love with its music. This wasn't a bunch of licensed tracks you would usually expect nowadays. No, those were tunes made for this game. Well, actually they were first included with Ridge Racer 2, a multiplayer version of the original Ridge Racer that was only available in Japanese arcades. But the point is, they are still made for Ridge Racer, they fit in perfectly and they were such an essential part of the game. And a unique one for sure, a mix of happy hardcore, gabba, rave, with some compositions bordering on insane. Yeah, I can see how some of those tracks would have the potential to annoy if they were ever to be played somewhere apart from the game.
How could anyone do this?
Like if someone brought a tape with this on a bus ride during a school trip and an unsuspecting person popped it in.
Let's try this one.
Nah, I picked the 2 most disturbing ones on purpose here, but even those complement the game well and only intensify the amazing sense of speed. That's probably what I was most stunned by, the sheer sense of speed. Right now you are looking at the US version, but of course back then we were playing a copy of the European release. And you would have expected this to move slower, but thankfully the game had received some weird but great adjustment in its conversion. Yeah, the screen did have the usual squish, and apart from the racing everything was slower, even the starting countdown. But once you actually started playing, the racing itself ended up at a similar speed. Which means regardless where you play this game, it's fast. But even so, we were mostly racing on the novice and intermediate courses, which made the cars have lower maximum speed levels. And also we often favored a car that traded speed for better handling, so we weren't even getting the full treatment most of the time. Yet still this game was like an adrenaline shot straight to the heart. But despite these engaging qualities that got your attention and performance up, the game didn't pressure you, it didn't force you to play a certain mode or accomplish anything. It only seemed to say, 4 cars, 3 courses,
Ridge Racer!
enjoy. And we certainly did, but of course we also tried to win those 3 races. And trying to do this gave us a hard time. I remember we managed to beat the first 2 tracks, but not the last one. It wasn't that the game made it impossible, we just sucked too much.
Too bad! Game over, man! Better luck next time!
And we were constantly switching cars to find out which one would serve our non-existing driving capabilities best. Usually you could only choose between 4 of them, not among all the 12 unique ones that were on the track. But at least one of us knew of the way to make the remaining 8 cars selectable. Whenever you booted up the game, it let you play a little Galaga 88 while still loading. And if you managed to shoot every single one of those 40 enemies, you would get access to all 12 cars. Accomplishing this took us quite a few tries.
Boah, ja sicher! Meine Fresse!
But eventually we made it. And we still didn't win the last race, but it was rewarding enough to have all those cars to play with. Oh yeah, the cars. I like how the game treated its cars like characters. They didn't have brands or car model types, but names. And you never saw any drivers, which made them have personalities of their own.
What's wrong? Is it the cutter? Whoops. Oh, hi. You more into blue? Yeah, pick me, pick me. Oh, you love Galaga, right?
Well, hello there.
And speaking of personality, the whole game was just oozing it. It seemed as if every little element was about making racing as exhilarating as possible. Probably the first thing you noticed was the enthusiastic announcer commenting on your race with a lot of attitude. And usually, your 11 opponents didn't just all drive away to be passed one by one. The cars you were catching up to often enjoyed traveling in packs of 2 or 3. So the races sometimes included some satisfying acrobatics. I don't know if the cars clustered up on purpose or by accident, but picking the right moment to try and pass a bunch of them in style without colliding felt awesome.
Hey.
Another fine tweak was your rearview mirror. It wasn't just a nice thing to look at, but cleverly integrated with the gameplay. You were often encouraged to not give away your position without a fight. And then there were these little jumps that made you just fly ahead and smash on the track again. The game even nailed the feeling of that. And most jumps were little challenges too. If you didn't get your direction and or speed right before leaving the ground, they would just send you flying right into a wall. Also a genius Ridge Racer idea, the suicidal chopper that often came very close to the racetrack and happily defied physics while moving around. Rushing by while sometimes almost touching it and hearing the engine roar gave every race an edge in intensity. And the whole tropical holiday island theme was such a great choice for a setting. While at the same time, the game was never even trying to look realistic or natural, but highly stylized, especially through an excessive and great use of color. Bright yellow in the tunnels, or clear emerald green water on the shore, or the beautiful oversaturated and surreal day-night transitions, during races that lasted only a few minutes of course. And there were all these little details like the light switching on at night inside buildings, or the lens flare that pops up when you first pass the checkpoint of the novice track, or those little sports planes just doing their thing for you. And then again the music accompanying all of this. Every single race was a blast to play from start to finish. And this whole mix of playfulness and daring design also set my impression of what this strange new and messed up console wanted to be about. It was all so upbeat, it seemed to scream,
Well, I may fail and blow up, but I don't care. Let's make everything colorful and loud and crazy. What's that, your fingers hurt? Nah, but you wouldn't want to miss out on all the fun, right? Got loading times? Nah, still don't care. See, I put a little game in your game so you can have some fun while you're waiting for the fun. Now here comes the fun, go have some fun. Fun. Take it or leave it, I'ma have some fun without you.
So I remember that while grinding my teeth, I spinned it like,
Well, this is actually not bad. But you know what? When it falls out, you'll get something even better than...
Ridge Racer!
No, why? Of course. It's got the power of like 5 PlayStations.
no, No, it didn't. And I couldn't get the game off my mind after this weekend. And would eventually rent a PlayStation twice to play it again.
Okay, there's a PlayStation icon right there.
And that's when I started discovering that on this weekend we had barely scratched the surface of what the game had to offer.